Hi everyone. Um, Welcome to GDG Johannesburg. Yet another month of great tech goodness from our local community speakers. Just to tell you a bit about GDG this month. Basically, just to give you exactly who we are. So, what is a GDG? So, a GDG stands for Google Developers Groups. We're for developers that are interested in Google's developer technology. So, that will include things like Android, Firebase, Flutter, Go, Dart, Android Wear, if anybody's still doing Android Wear, or Wear OS it's called now, Angular, TensorFlow, and Chrome. Okay. Um, and how often do we have these meetups? Basically, every first Wednesday of the month. On the interwebs, you can find us at gdg.community.dev/GDG Johannesburg. Twitter, you can catch us on at GDG Johannesburg. Instagram as well, same handle, and email as well, same handle. Okay. Sorry if I'm looking to the side. I'm just looking at my screen here. So, code of conduct. So, by attending your retail code of conduct, basically just be nice to everybody. Everybody's here to learn and to grow and to acquire different skills or at least be aware of new technologies. And we just want everyone to be nice to each other, assume positive intent. We do have an anti-harassment policy, so yeah, just be a good human being, you know. Yeah, and thank you very much to our sponsors, Luno and OfferZen and Retro Rabbits, as well as Infamous JetBrains, who, if some of you guys don't know, they do the IntelliJ IDE and developers of the Kotlin language, and just 1.5 was released today, so just thought I'd put that in there for any Kotlin devs. Um, Cool. If you want to be a speaker, you can get in touch with us at gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com or on our Twitter handle. New and experienced speakers are welcome. So if you've never done a talk, it's okay. We can help you walk and take you through the process to get you up to at least to speed to a point where you can at least try and give yourself your very first talk. Yeah, experienced speakers also welcome. Cool. So what's next on the agenda for next month? We have a collaboration with She Can Do. It's a local UX meetup. At there we have a talk by Jacqueline Fisher, who is head of UX at Superbalist. We're also going to have a panel of designers and developers on how to improve our collaboration. You know, design and dev. I, for one, completely suck at at design. So as a dev, I definitely welcome something like this because, yeah, I could definitely use that. Today's agenda. So basically, the first 10 minutes is welcome, which is what I was taking you through now. Secondly, we've got a great talk by Peter John Welcome and Pamela Hill that's taking us through Jetpack Compose and Swift UI, fun with declarative UIs. That's going to be a good one. And then at 10 to 7 till 7:30, we have the benefits of state flow and shared flow over live data. So for you Android devs out there who are still trying to figure out whether to keep using live data or state flow or shared flow, that's the talk for you. Construct layout 2 helpers, that's going to be by Fidelity Chowke, who's going to be taking us through that as well. Then from 10 to 8 till 5 to 8, we'll just do a giveaways for all our lovely audience out there, as well as a thank you to everybody. So yeah, I think it's time for us to get underway. Let us have a look here. Just give me 1 second. Just get some of the speakers in.
Hey everyone.
Okay. Hello, Pam.
Hi. And also PJ. Look there. There he is.
Hey, what's
There
up?
is-
And hello, PJ. It's great to have you guys with us. Thank you very much for joining. Definitely looking forward to this talk. I mean, I was playing around with SwiftUI a couple of days ago myself, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And Jetpack Compose, so I think everybody's excited as I am to sort of take us through stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna hand over to you guys. Take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Lucy.
Okay.
Cool. I'm just going to share my screen.
Hey dude,
Just give
that's
me
an
a
epic
second.
sweater you got there.
Thank you.
You're on. I like it very much.
I pulled out a rabbit.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think everybody can you see my screen?
Yes.
I think awesome. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks everybody that's out there on the interwebs for joining us today. Myself and Pamela are gonna do a co-speaking talk, and we're gonna be comparing Jetpack Compose and Swift UI. And we obviously our theme is fun with declarative UIs. Yeah, let's jump straight into it. So for people that don't know who I am, I'm Peter John Welcome. I am an Android engineer at Paystack. I'm also GDE for Firebase. You can find me on Twitter at PJ Apples, and I also have a podcast called Talking with Apples somewhere on the internet if you'd like to listen to it. Yeah, and my co-speaker is...
Hi everyone, I am Pamela Hill, and the cutie over there on the right-hand side is Emma. You might hear her barking every now and then. I'm sorry for that, but it is a dog and I can't stop her. Free. So I'm an Android engineer at Over by GoDaddy, and you can also find me on Twitter at Pamela A. Hill. I also have a blog, but I'm not blogging so often anymore, but you can check it out. I blog on Kotlin and Android and accessibility stuff, and it's PamelaAhill.com.
Awesome.
So a really good way of sort of introducing our topic for tonight is, why do we actually want to do declarative? And it really starts with thinking about what is a declarative UI. And we need to go to the next slide. Yes, thank you. And it basically describes what all the elements that you want to put in your UI, and to a degree what it should look like. But you're not going to like specify exact positioning of UI elements, or every single styling element or styling attribute that it should have. And it's really useful also to compare declarative with imperative, and sort of explain what the difference is, and kind of explain what declarative is better in that way. So if we look at imperative is our traditional way of doing things, and it's basically coding out the steps to create the UI. And declarative, on the other hand, what we'll be looking at tonight, is describing what the UI is actually going to, what it actually should look like. It's describing, that's like the keyword. So on Android, your imperative style is creating your views manually and adding those views to your layouts manually, and basically adding them to their container views. Whereas on Android, it's Jetpack Compose for declarative.
Awesome. So yeah, let's kind of go through the benefits of using declarative UIs. So one of the things that declarative UIs give us is that state becomes a lot easier. So on Android, we would have a situation where we'd use something like the remember lambda, and we would have a mutable state of like property, where we can use to pretty much keep state of any kind of variables when we're doing recomposition of views, or if we're even doing configuration changes, we can use something like remember savable lambda. And then on iOS, we have also a whole bunch of property wrappers that help us do state. So like we have binding, and we have state actual property wrapper also. This also helps us kind of do unidirectional flow, where we have things flowing down and events bubbling up. So that's a nice way of always thinking about it. These declarative UIs also are very compatible with reactive architectures and tool sets. So if you've ever used live data, RX, Java, Flow, these toolkits and tools actually combine really, really well within this whole declarative UI, where we even have on live data, we have an as state object. So you can actually convert your live data to state objects, and it will react accordingly. With Swift, with Swift UI, we obviously have RX Swift if you're still kind of using that. But we also have a native first-party library that Apple's built using Combined, and that kind of plugs in straight into Swift UI like pretty perfectly. So there's those type of frameworks that you can use to create a specific architecture, probably like MVVM, MVI, or a composable architecture. These declarative UIs, though, also are compatible with the older UI kits, so you don't have to kind of worry about that either. So you can use both of these. You can use them within existing views, existing applications, or you can actually use existing UIs within your new application that you're building if there isn't a declarative component already for a specific thing that you're trying to build. Some of the downsides, though, of declarative UI is that it is a bit of a mind shift change. So you kind of have to think of things a lot differently when you're actually building a declarative UI. You kind of have to look at it. You kind of have to plan ahead and think about like what is the end goal of the specific screen. And how am I going to be handling state from the beginning? You kind of have to already think about what the states are for the specific screen once you're building it. There's a lot more to learn, of course. There's in Android and iOS, there's so much to learn already. So now actually trying to, it's not technically a downside. I guess it is an upside to always be learning. But I mean, you kind of like have to now advance your skill sets to kind of learn declarative UI. These toolkits are very still immature. So from a Swift point of view, it's only 2 years old. It's been 2 years in production, and the third iteration of Swift is coming. But from a Jetpack Compose point of view, it's still in beta. So that's kind of like we're kind of waiting for a stable version, a 1.0. So there might be a lot of functionality from the toolkits that might be missing, things that you might think that should be there, like in Swift UI, you think that there's a search bar. There is no search bar. There's no UI search controller. And then you might be in an application in Jetpack Compose and you're thinking, hey, I want to actually put Google Maps in my application, and then there's no Google Maps component. So that's kind of like things that you kind of have to think about. These new declarative UI toolkits are not compatible with our older languages such as Java and Objective-C. So you kind of have to also think about that. And yeah, sometimes you can also write a lot more code because you have a lot more control over the UI itself. But benefits of actually having the same language. So at this moment in time, there's no more interoperability in terms of like view interoperability, where in Android you have a bunch of XML, and then on iOS you have storyboards, and you kind of have to like work between these two kind of like worlds. You can also mix control flows. So like you can have a whole bunch of like for loops and stuff like that inside of your view. You'll kind of see that a little bit later. To kind of like iterate through a few things. It does make the code a lot easier to read because you're not going to have a whole bunch of, you're not going to have to be going from one file, from an XML file into like your Kotlin file and then actually looking view by ID and trying to find a whole bunch of things. Everything is all in the same file most of the time. You can obviously break things up, but most of the time you'll kind of get the bigger picture from one file of what you're actually trying to create. In one place for styling and behavior. So everything just lives in one specific spot, and you can kind of have it all in one place just to see what you're trying to create at the end of the day. Cool. So something that we thought might be interesting is that like maybe a lot of people haven't actually seen how people create, because I know GDG is a big Android audience, but maybe they've never ever seen how iOS developers actually create views. Before we get into doing declarative and Swift UI, I thought let me give a quick demo of how iOS and storyboards actually work, and it's very similar to constraint layout in Android. So I've just opened a quick Xcode project. It's literally a blank view. And what I'm going to do is I'm pretty much going to create like a quick, the worst login screen I can create. So I'm going to pretty much create some views, and I'm going to put a button, probably get a button onto the screen. So it looks kind of like something, right? So there's kind of these lines that kind of guide you and stuff like that on where things can kind of go, that things are in line, which is quite nice. And generally, if you run this, it would probably not be in the exact center. It could be all over the place, but who knows? But what we can do is we can obviously use constraints. So we have this thing where we can press Control and drag, and we can kind of like just constrain things to certain sides of the actual view, and we can obviously constrain things to each other. No, I don't want that one. Okay, but yeah, you kind of get the point, that we can kind of constrain things around. And then how we would actually get this into the actual code to actually use it is that we can do this thing where we kind of control from the one side and we control into the code, control drag into the code, and it kind of pops up with this thing that says outlet, and we can name this username, and that creates an outlet, and we might have a button that we can create an action for. So an action is pretty much saying like a click action, similar to your click listener in Android, and we can just say click button with bad spelling. And this will pretty much create like some kind of like function here, and then you can pretty much do whatever you wanted to do, like actually create a login function that gets called and stuff like that. So yeah, this is just a quick demo of like what it would look like if you had a creative view in iOS. There's kind of like no XML, and there's like a one random constraint, and then you can kind of like you can kind of look at the constraints on the side, and there's a whole mathematical system to it. But yeah, I just wanted to show quickly how we used to create views before we get into a declarative view. Yeah, so I'm just gonna we're gonna start this Clone Wars. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be creating just a view that kind of like represents Netflix's I think it's their detail view, I guess, where you pretty much will be able to see a bunch of episodes. And I'm gonna be starting on iOS because I'm already here. So what we're going to be building is we're actually going to be building this. So I decided to just keep it here quickly so everybody can see what it will look like. And I've just added the only things, so I'm not cheating, it's not already there, but I just added all the data structures with all the data so that we don't have to do all of that while we're in. And then there's some assets over here that I added and stuff like that in the assets. But I will just resume this now, and then it should go away. Cool. So we have a blank view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off very simple, and I'm going to create an actual view. So what we do is we're going to create a struct, and we're going to call this detail view, and we're going to inherit from view. Right. So this is not the same view as Android, where you have the I don't know 16,000 line view that's out there. And what this view is going to do is it's going to give us this body over here that's going to have the actual view. And this thing is complaining because it needs to return some kind of like actual element on the screen, right? So for now, I'm just gonna put a text here so you can pretty much see what's actually going on. I'm going to put some text there so it can go away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, in our preview at the bottom over here, I'm actually going to put our detailed view so that we can start seeing things happen when it does happen. So I'm just going to say hello world here. All right. Cool. And I'm just going to resume so that I can start like showing some stuff on the screen. And cool, we have hello world, right? So let's actually start building this thing. So what I'm going to start off with a VStack. So a VStack is pretty much just it's a stack that is vertical. So it's a vertical stack, and this vertical stack has some parameters on it. So it has like alignment and spacing. So we can kind of align it to the center. We can align it to the left or the right using leading or trailing. I'm just going to add some spacing here from just initial spacing. So this will like have spacing around the whole view. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an image. So I just want to put an image in here, and I'm going to, I actually have it in this thing. So I'm going to go series, and I'm going to say .image, and hopefully it will show us some image, right? So it's going to give us this massive image that's over there, and we want to resize this. So we're just going to, we're going to do resizable, because I didn't do dot, resizable, and then we're going to give it a frame. And we want this thing to be, we want it to kind of fill the screen, but we want it to be about 200, and we don't really care. We don't really want it in the center, so we'll just leave it over there. So we'll have it as 200 over there, and it's gonna default to the center, which is fine, right? So that's kind of our first component that we have over there. Then the second thing that we want to do is we're going to create a scroll view. So we kind of want the episodes to be below this, right? So and as we scroll, it will kind of like just scroll underneath the specific view over here. So I'm just going to create a scroll view, and the scroll view has a few properties. So it has content and a show indicator. So what we're going to have over here is that we want this to be a vertical scroll view because we're actually going to be scrolling up and down. So we have it vertical. We don't really want the indicator on the side to be showing. So I'm just going to do false over here. And then next, we have our content that we're actually going to be placing within the specific view. So Swift has a thing where you obviously have, it's called trailing closures. So as soon as you have a lambda or a closure that's the last property, you don't have to actually put it like that. You can just kind of close it and then pretty much remove this, and then the lambda becomes the pretty much the last property that you can use. So then we have this placeholder thing, which is really, really cool. And you can kind of see that. So this is kind of our scroll view at the moment, right? Our next step is going to be pretty much creating another VStack, because we're going to be doing a few things here where we're going to have our list of episodes, but we also kind of want to just have we're going to do this alignment thing. We want to have something where it says this is a limited series, because this was a limited series within Netflix. So we're going to do .leading because we want it to kind of be, eventually it will go to the left-hand side. And we want some spacing. I'm just putting some random numbers in here, 15. And again, I'm just going to be doing the trailing closure thing. So we can kind of just have this. So that's cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have another stack of stuff where we're just going to have our text over here, and we're going to say this is pretty much a limited series. We can actually use this. And we want this to be a certain font. So we're just going to give it a font, and we're going to say this is .headline. So there's a few like set fonts that we can use. So there's like title, headline, subtitle, and all of those type of things. They obviously default to a certain font and a certain size, which is really cool. So that kind of just gives us that kind of like freedom to use these specific things. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create our list of items that are actually going to be showing, or our episodes, a list of episodes. So we're going to use something called the for each. So this is also kind of a view that pretty much repeats views, which is kind of nice. And it has a bunch of stuff here, but I'm going to just give it my data. So I have series and I have .seasons. And because it's the first season, I'm just going to use .first. And .first then .first is actually an optional value. So I'm just going to like unwrap it because it's a demo. And then I'm going to have episodes. And then this is obviously going to open up a lambda for us. And then we need to obviously give it each episode. So how do we get each episode out of this for each loop? We're going to have episodes, episode, and then we do this in thing. So that pretty much tells us that this is the episode inside of this. As you're looping, this is the actual episode. So, if you kind of know how closures work, that's pretty much like a definition of a closure that has a property inside of it. Yeah, a parameter. Parameter is the right word. Cool. So then what we're going to do is we're actually going to create an H stack now. So H stack is a horizontal stack. So I'm going to create an H stack. And this H stack, what it's going to have it's going to have our image for each episode. So this is kind of like our episode like holder. So what we're going to do here, so we're going to do an image, and our image is going to have a name. So we don't need to do that. We can do episode dot image, which is quite cool. And then all of a sudden we see all of our images, which is great. And we kind of want to resize this to make it like a lot smaller, because we kind of want it to be of frame size. I'm going to do like 70, 80. No, I want the height to be 80. No. Height. I want the height to be 70 actually, and then this to be 80. Cool. Sorry about that. And then my alignment over here, we kind of don't want the alignment. So we kind of want this thing to kind of be in that specific spot over here. And then we kind of also just want to add like a corner radius so that I can kind of have like some kind of like corner radius there. And we make this 8, and it will kind of just like put some corner radiuses pretty much around those images there. So we already have something going here. Okay, cool. So our next element here is we're going to create is another VStack, because our VStack is going to hold our title and our duration of the actual of this actual series. So what we're going to do over here is we're going to create this VStack, and this VStack we probably want to align this VStack. So have an alignment so it aligns to leading. I think I did some crazy stuff here. And we want it to be, again, I think this 15 is just a number that I like using, just to keep consistent. So we have that. So we have a placeholder there. And then what this is going to be, we're going to have our name, our title. So our episode, episode title, and we will have another text, which will just be our episode dot length. Yes, awesome, cool. So it's looking like something at the moment, right? So next, what we want to do is we want to add that little download button that's normally on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to create a button. And then this button is going to have a few things. So it's going to have an action and a label. So normally the action is when you click on the button, something's going to happen. And then the label will be the part where you actually give it what the label should be of the view itself. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to do this again. And I'm going to actually put an image in here so that we can have like an image button. Okay, compiler, don't fail me now. And we want this to be a download button. So that's cool. And then we probably just want to render this. We want to render mode. Okay, compiler, original. Come on, compiler. You're not giving me anything today. Okay. But nothing. Yes. Okay, cool. I don't know. It's kind of giving me some vibes. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna add a spacer here so we can move it to the right hand side. So it should do stuff. It should move everything to the left and the right hand side when it does decide to compile. So it's doing some previewing compilation over there. Maybe I should just run it quickly. Yeah. I'm just building. Hopefully everything is all good. Okay. It wants me to wait for something. Okay, cool. Let's kind of just move on for now. And then the last thing that we probably want to do, because we're in this HStack over here, is we want to have some text. And the text is going to be our episode dot description, because that's what we, okay, what is it complaining about? Let me just add my image there. Maybe it will give me some, maybe now it's going to be okay. It's probably going to complain about this. Let me just run this. Okay. So let me just run this guy. Okay, yay, something happened. Cool. So hopefully we will get our text back, our IDE, our description. Maybe we get a description, and then we want a divider. Yeah, coding sometimes without the actual compiler is never great, and we want this to be vertical. And we're probably gonna add just like some padding over there. I think it's probably trying to open a simulator. That's why it's taking so long. But we don't really care about a simulator. We just wanted to show us in the preview for now. So hopefully we get compilation soon. Okay. Yes, no. Swift UI. Yeah. Let me just recompile this quickly. Hopefully, cool. So now I can resume because the IDE came back, and hopefully it will show up our view. So yeah, let me just move on. And then for this, I'm just gonna add some padding because we need some padding because it's all kind of like on the side. Maybe this will kind of show us something, but we will just add some padding on the side here. So I'm just gonna add padding to the bottom. I'm gonna add padding to bottom. And I'm going to make that 15 because I don't really want padding on the top. And I'm going to add more padding, just horizontal padding, so it can give me padding on the sides. So I'll do horizontal padding, and I'm going to do 15 there. Let's see. Cool. So that kind of worked because it's looking for the detail screen here. So maybe we can just run this. I guess I could just copy paste this. And then we can actually run it in the emulator since the preview is just like not being our friend today. Okay, cool. This is on. So this is doing something at the moment, but we'll fix all of this weirdness at the moment. So we have something so far. Preview is just not giving us it's not really doing it for us. And then what we're gonna do over here is we're just gonna do kind of doing the ignoring of the safe areas. So I'm just gonna do edges. Ignoring safe area, and I'm going to to say that I want to ignore the bottom. Oh my goodness. The bottom. And our last thing that we're going to do here is we're just going to make this dark mode. So I'm going to just do preferred color scheme. And I'm just coding in the dark, I guess. So yeah, hopefully let's see if we run this. Let's see if it works. It's successful. And we kind of have a thing where we have this thing over here, and we have our view showing something with dark mode. I think I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to hand over to Pam, and she's going to show us the Android version of the specific view. Cool. You're on mute.
Sorry, these things, these technical things. I was going to say, I'm going to share my screen now, and let's get started. This is screen one. And PJ, if you can just tell me if you can see my beautiful Queen's Gambit on the right-hand side and my code on the left.
Happiness.
Can you see? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So as Peter was saying, we decided that we were not going to bore you all with typing in data structures. So we have a series data structure, a season data structure, and an episode data structure. And we have a season and a series and a bunch of episodes in a season. But Queen's Gambit only has one season, unfortunately, or that I know of. I think it's a limited series. And I was also lazy and I didn't create all 7 or 8 of the episodes. I just did 4 of them. I want to show you also the various theming stuff that Android Studio generates for you when you create a composed project. So it has this dark gray, it has a couple of colors that you can define in your color theme, and you can also define some typography. So in this project, I just defined body 1, H1, and H2. Nothing special really here, except for the font sizes that I tried to make look roughly like the Netflix clone. And then I have my theme. So you'll see on here, I basically left everything to be this weird purple color, except for the surface and on surface. So surface is a dark gray, and on surface is going to be a white color. So the background is going to be dark gray, and all the text and stuff that goes on top of it is going to be white. Now, looking at that, maybe not the right idea. I should have been using dark color palette, but let's move swiftly along. Not the discussion for now. So not the discussion for now. Not something to realize right in the middle of your demo, right? Okay, let's just go into presentation mode so you can see nicely what's happening here. Okay, so the building block of a screen in Jetpack Compose is a composable. And I'm just going to comment out my cheat code. All the cheat code that we're going to write now is just laying out over here. So we've got a preview that is going to, it's scoped to the Netflix clone theme, which is the dark background with the white on. And we've got a Netflix clone composable, right? And those are just functions, Netflix clone, and we're going to pass in a series of type series to it. Okay, right. So the first thing that we want to go do is we want to add a surface. And remember that it's going to be dark gray. And in that surface, we're going to add the column. And the first thing that's going to be in that column is an image, which is that nice top image at the top. And then some text, and then we're going to iterate over the episodes. So first we have our image. Now, I'm not 100% excited about the way that they define the images here. I think it's kind of like weird painter resource, but be that as it may, series.image. We define what we actually want to paint. And importantly enough, here we have our content description. So that is for that is for our screen readers, our accessibility features. Next, we're going to have this title here at the right. We're going to have like it's just going to say episodes, or on PJ's screen it said limited series or something like that. And we can see it's kind of looking big, so we're going to give it a style of material theme dot typography, and we always want to refer back to the material theme stuff. Okay, now is the time to have a look and see what this baby looks like. So we're expecting to see just the image and the episode, and please don't let me down preview. There we go. Nice. Okay, so don't stress about this. This is just an extra view, but we're seeing, okay, so it is stretching and that the image is looking fine, but we can see that episodes, if I go in here a little bit more, it needs a little something on the side there. So we want to, in the way that most of the things that you do on like stylistically is with modifiers on Get Compose. So we add a modifier for padding, and there's a whole bunch of alternatives that you can use. But the one alternative is to add just to your start. Okay, we want to add maybe 16 dp to the one to the left and the right. And we want to add maybe 8 dp to the top and the bottom. So let's see if that makes things look a little bit better. So I want you to notice here one thing. Okay, it's being a bit weird, but never mind. It was just duplicating this on the side. I think it was just a rendering problem. So notice here how we use it. It's this 16.dp. That's an extension function on the int class on the int class. That allows us to make to go to device independent pixels, which is pretty cool. I think it's a very nice shortcut and a nice way to read code. Okay, now we're going to iterate over our episode, so we can literally mix in our control structures. This is just a normal for loop, so we're going to say for the series for the season. Series, sorry for the flashing, I hope it doesn't disturb anyone. Seasons, so we're iterating over the seasons in this series, and then we're going to iterate over the episode in the season.episodes. Okay, and then we're going to add our new composable that we're going to create, episode clone. And we're passing in episode. Okay, so we haven't defined that yet, so let's do that now. Composable, fun. You guys having a fun time? I hope you are. I'm having a great time. This is my first live coding. I'm usually quite a slow and erroneous kind of typing person, but it looks like it's going not too bad right now. Okay, and this is my cheat sheet. Hey! So let's just delete the cheat sheet over there. Okay, I'll just go back to it if I get stuck. Okay, so episodes has on the right-hand side, it has that picture, then it has a picture, it has some details, and then it has the download button, and then at the bottom it has the text. So we actually want like kind of like a row. I think it's a row. Yeah, it's a row. We kind of have a row. And in this row, we're going to have a couple of columns. So I'm first going to just define what's going to be in the columns. But I want to kind of give proportional space to each one of them. And I can do that with the modifier dot weight. Okay, so the first one, let's just thumbs up and give it a weight of 1F. Okay, the next one is going to be for the extra details, and that is going to have a modifier also of weight modifier, weight, and that is going to be of maybe 3F, and then another column of type with a modifier of. I should have copied and pasted this, shouldn't I have? Yes, I should. But that's okay. And then we make it kind of small, like that. Okay. So, and then we have just below the row, we can have some text. We can add some text, and that will be the episode dot description. Okay, but I want to add it in a row itself as well. So let's just copy and paste that. I'll tell you now why. So first we have, in our first column, we have our image with our painter resource. Woo! And we have episode dot image, okay? And our content description can be null because we actually have the title of the episode right next to it. I don't think it really warrants the use case to actually go and add something else to it. Then we have in our second column, we have two text fields. One text will be episode dot title, and we want to make the style kind of like material theme. We want to make the style a little smaller than an H1, so H2, right? But we also want to make it pop a little bit. So we're going to use the copy function from the data class, and we're going to use font weight is font weight dot bold. So we're going to make it just pop slightly. Then we have another text, and that will be episode dot length. And same style. So maybe I should just copy and paste it. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I said H1, but I meant H2. Okay, let's see what this puppy looks like. I hope some of you are at least following along. Okay, so it's not looking too bad. It's looking a little dodgy here because I used H2 instead of H1. H1 instead of H2. So that's looking a little bit better, but we can make some improvements. Let's just add the download button here, and then we can almost start nudging things in the right direction. So we have our painter resource again, and this time we're going to use a drawable. So r.drawable. And it's basically our download button, and the content description will be download. Remember always, when you have content descriptions, please make sure that you localize it so that folks using screen readers, etc., are actually going to be able to read it or hear it in their own local languages. Okay, so we actually see a couple of things that we want to maybe refine a little bit. I'm not going to do everything, but it's looking not too bad. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make rounded corners on my image. So I'm going to copy and paste the image into a surface, and we can actually create a shape in here. So we can actually make it a rounded corner shape and give it maybe like, if I want to make it like 8dp, it's going to look a little bit bad, but I want to make sure that you see on the screen that it's actually making round corners. It's a little bit, where am I going? Mommy. Okay. It is rounded, but it's not looking, let me just zoom in a little bit. Can you see it's rounded? There, it's rounded. Okay, great. So that's a good first improvement. Then we also want, maybe we'll add some padding, but you've seen padding already. So the other thing that I can show you is how to align things. Now, columns work with vertical alignment. So I can actually go say align in my modifier and center vertically. So columns have your vertical stuff, and rows will have your horizontal stuff for centering and left aligning and so on. So that is now perfectly centered, as you can see. I would like to add like a little bit padding there, a little padding there, maybe make the color over here, make the style. Again, the one bugbear that I have here is that it's always trying to use material theme, the lambda, instead of material theme, the actual defined constant or whatever it is. And that's a little bit of a bugbear. And if I want to give a color, I would probably want to give it a light gray color. And that's going to be my last fiddly bit for today. I'm not going to take much more time. So there's a few things that I would still like to change, but I'm not going to play with it any further. I want us to continue to our questions. So let me exit my, I hope you enjoyed what I saw. I hope you saw what I did. Goodness. Okay. There we go. Oh, okay, I'm back. PJ,
Awesome. Yeah, that was really great.
Okay, cool.
It was really, really cool. So I'm just going to share my screen again and jump back to our slides. So that was our bit of a clone war. I hope everybody enjoyed that. So we did the Android and iOS. So our next section is, so what now? And we kind of just have a few questions that we kind of want to answer around declarative UIs and Jetpack Compose and Swift UI. So the first one is, when should I start using Jetpack Compose and Swift UI? And I think this is quite an important question. And I guess our answer is you need to decide for yourself when stable is really stable. So at the end of the day, Android Jetpack Compose is still in beta at the moment. It probably will be in stable very soon, but you also kind of look at things like if you still support, like, I don't know, Android 16 or something like that. Hopefully not. Hopefully everybody in the world is on 21 and up, so we can use Jetpack Compose everywhere. But yeah, one of the biggest things with Swift UI is that it's only supported from iOS 13 and up. So you pretty much only have like N-2, I get N-1 right now, which is pretty much iOS 13 and 14. And hopefully iOS 15 will come out and you'll actually have at least 3 versions where it will support that. But you kind of have to just think about, like, how mature is the actual toolkit itself? Do you feel like you're going to be running into a bunch of bugs? Is it going to be creating a great experience for, like, in terms of your developer life every single day? And I think if you're maybe doing new projects, I think, like, in terms of like maybe a side project and stuff, like, I think Jetpack Compose is really cool to be doing it with that. I think you probably can use it in production. I think there are people using it in production, but I think you kind of have to kind of just get, I guess, yourself and your team have to make that decision about if you guys are willing to kind of like also deal with any nuances that comes with the toolkit. You probably also need to think about a migration strategy. Are you going to be actually migrating your views from from XML imperative way to declarative and all of that? Are you going to take all your storyboards and put them into Swift UI? Or are you just going to kind of like get to the point where you just creating new views with Swift UI and creating new composable views for whatever else you need to create? So yeah, I think it's kind of like your decision on what you do over there. Then the next question is kind of around newbies to Android and iOS, and should I learn the old way of doing things? And my answer to that is definitely you probably should at least know how it works. So if you're ever going to go and work at some kind of like company that has existing applications and stuff like that, you're probably going to interact with Android XML files and like the old way of doing UI. We have XML view by ID, all of those type of things, view binding, all of those, that kind of thing. And you're probably also going to be working with Java. There might be a lot of legacy code in Java. So definitely understanding that realm is definitely a good thing. Being able to at least read Java, just in case you need to be able to fix something small or fix a bug or something like that. But obviously, learning the new stuff is good, and it's same with iOS. Learn Objective-C, at least be able to read Objective-C so that you will be able to fix anything that you do need to work on. But I mean, obviously, always look towards the future and learn all the new stuff. So definitely, I think the answer to this is definitely still learn the old stuff, because it's going to be around for a very long time. And I think especially from an Android perspective, you're probably going to have Android views around probably for the next 2 or 3 years before as people kind of migrate to Jetpack Compose. Yeah. Cool. Pam.
So our next question is, what architectures work best with Jetpack Compose or SwiftUI? And you can answer that in two ways. The one way is like on Android, definitely MVVM is what most people are using for using with Jetpack Compose. I've heard of somebody, maybe she's in the audience, that tried to use it with MVI. But it sounded like there were a few bugbears there, and I'm not really sure if it was a successful experiment, but definitely MVVM. On the other side, on the other hand, there's also reactive architectures such as and toolkits and libraries and stuff that is very well suited for using with Jetpack Compose and SwiftUI. Things like live data and your flows and RxJava. I'm not sure about RxJava, but definitely like live data and the flow stuff definitely are going to support Jetpack Compose really, really, really well.
Yeah, and I think from a SwiftUI point of view, Apple has kind of recommended that we do MVVM. So pretty much most people are going the MVVM route when creating applications with SwiftUI these days. But I mean, there are a bunch of other architectures that we can use that are kind of supported. Like there's new composable architectures that people are doing. And there's the Redux. I've seen some people do the Redux architecture with SwiftUI, and it works really, really great also. So I think from an architectural point of view, you have a lot of choice, and especially with a lot of architectures out there supporting kind of like this reactive environment. Where we were trying to do this with imperative code, and now it just makes it a lot easier with declarative. Cool.
Right. Another question is, I've struggled with theming on Android in the past. Who hasn't? Is Jetpack Compose going to make it easier? And the answer is hopefully. So Jetpack Compose is material design first. So you're going to be able to you're going to be supported slightly more than you would be if you were just to create a theme from scratch. And I think, as I was showing you, you've got your typography, you've got your colors and things, you've got that on surface and surface stuff, and that dark and light mode. So to a very large extent, it's going to be easier, especially because you're not going to be fiddling with different files all the time. You don't have to reference the styles and then the typography thing and then this and then that. It should basically be all in one file, or at least all in one language. It won't be XML and then some of it is in Java or Kotlin, and then some of it is, it will be okay. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it will be a little bit easier for you. The next question is about accessibility. getting accessibility right is hard. Will Jetpack Compose improve that? And the answer is probably, but not yet. I had an interesting discussion with somebody from Google, and they said that the view system was very difficult for them to get accessibility with TalkBack correct. And they were hoping that Jetpack Compose would be kind of like a fresh start for them. And with that, thank you. And are there any questions? Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And girls, and they and thems. Okay. Oh, goodness. Right. Let's see if there's any questions. Let's bring Lucy back on the stage. Lucy, can I add you? Okay. We'll do our own Q&A. How does that sound, BJ?
Excuse me?
Can we do our own Q&A?
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Cool. Eval's asking, has anyone heard any chance to do performance tests, especially on older devices? I think it's basically only from API 21 up. So I haven't looked at older devices yet, but it's at least supported. And hey, today they announced that it's that Jetpack Compose is on the browser.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think from a perspective, I've seen from iOS perspective that performance is pretty good. There's no real differences when it comes to doing it in either one. But I mean, yeah, I think it probably is more just a developer experience. And I think even from Jetpack Compose, I don't think I think the view system might be like milliseconds, maybe. Like faster. Well, the last time I spoke to someone that kind of like works on it, they kind of just said that it was like they're making it better. So yeah. No hot reloading.
On Swift, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's no. I don't think. Yeah, like hot reloading. Technically, we have the preview, which is technically hot reloading. When the compiler compiles stuff. But like, yeah, so we can kind of always see the view. We can actually run stuff also in the preview, so you can click around and everything. So you can run it and actually like scroll in the preview. I could have shown that if it was actually doing what it was supposed to do. But yeah, you technically have hot reloading, but it's not the complete hot reloading, like where it's like browser based, or like how Flutter does it. Like, yeah, but it's very close.
Cool. Scrolling for questions, we don't see anything else. Yeah, it's just a how XML is still better than storyboards. So there's that. But hopefully everybody gets onto the declarative UI section soon. Thank you so much, guys, for your presentation. We really appreciate it. Okay, so the next talk is going to be by let's see here. Is going to be by okay, if you guys can see my screen, yeah, by Andre. Basically, the benefits of StateFlow and ShareFlow over live data. Yeah, so Andre, without taking up more time,
thanks.
We'll hand over to you.
Hey guys, I'm really proud to be part of GDG Johannesburg. I hope once we will have such a great community in Kyiv. So today I want to talk about difference between StateFlow and live data, and what pitfalls we can see during migration from StateFlow to live data. Shortly about myself. So as you know, my name is Andrew. I am Android developer at Luno. Also, I'm from Ukraine. I'm big fan of Kotlin, and coroutines is my passion. So My colleague Maya and me were speakers at DrawingCon 2020 with topic about migration and refactoring of big application. With release 1.4.0 of Kotlin coroutines library, we have stable state flow and share flow. I'm one of the person who responsible for improving and migration of our application. So we always analyze all new features and libraries to be sure that our team use the most comfortable technologies. So that's why we've done a lot of migrations. So I investigate state flow and share flow to understand, could they be useful for us? So state flow is very similar to live data. But why do we need alternative? Is live data is so bad? Actually, it's not so bad. Live data was designed to create connection between different layers in our application. Most of us use it to create interaction between view model or and activity or fragment. And be honest, it's work fine. But live data has some disadvantages. Let's go through them. I think the most annoying thing about live data is that value always a nullable type. I hope all of you use Kotlin. So the problem is that live data written in Java. So as you know, all objects in Java are nullable. So even if you show for 100% that your value is not null, in Kotlin, you should anyway check it for null. In this example, I pass some default value to mutable live data, but still I should use question mark. And be honest, it makes me sad. The next one is that you should always pass correct lifecycle owner when observe live data in fragment, because lifecycle of fragment and fragments view are different. So if we use this instead of view lifecycle owner, in some cases your application could crash. But during my preparation, I noted that in new Android Studio, there is an error, and you cannot use wrong lifecycle owner. The next point, just imagine that you have some, for example, repository, with live data. And it is necessary to observe it in view model. So you must write a lot of boilerplate code. First, you should create observer. Then you should observe forever to some live data, for example, in init block. And it's very, very important not forget to remove observer, because it could create a memory leak. And the last thing from my top, if that's live data is part of Android X. So it can be used in cross-platform development. But maybe this is not the most terrible thing. Okay, you may ask, hey, Andrew, what about coroutines and flow? Could we use it instead of live data? The short answer is no. Coroutine is non-sequential, so you could call it and get a result only once. It's designed to be like a regular function, so you just call this function and get a result of work. Okay, what about flow? Flow cannot be used because it is code. What does it mean? So imagine that there is a flow that does some calculation and emit a result of work to this flow. Every time when you collect this flow, it will calculate this value and emit it. So take a look at an example. Here we have a flow that in for loop emit value from 1 to 10, just for example. So when we collect it twice, it will run this for loop twice and emit same value, because flow cannot store and share result of work. So so we cannot use it as alternative of live data. Also, be very careful when you use flow, because if in flow you do some intensive work like network call or some database operation, it will do for each collect. So take in mind. We need flow but hot. In coroutines, we have one more beast called broadcast channel. Broadcast channel is a non-blocking channel that create communication between sender and multiply receivers that subscribe for these elements. So some of the realization of broadcast channel could also store value. So it could be like live data's alternative. But I tried to use it sometime before, and be honest, I don't like it. The most scary thing is that if channel is closed and you try emit a new value to it, it will throw an exception. Another point is that broadcast channel was experimental, so it could change a lot after release. But in this case, it was deprecated because we have shared flow now. So yeah, that's why I always think twice before use something experimental in our production code. So finally, we find out that state and shared flow is the best alternative of live data. Of course, there is Eric Java, but comparing Eric Java and state flow and shared flow is out of scope for current speech. We understand the problem with live data, and we know how to solve it. But is JetBrains solution is better? Let's find out. The only thing that you need is replace live data with mutable state flow and observe with collect. And that's it. Thank you for your attention, folks. No, I'm joking. It is not so easy. First of all, I want to talk about what is shared flow and state flow and how to use it. Let's start from shared flow. Shared flow is a hot flow that emits values to all consumers that collect from it, and it stores a list of elements. This list called replay cache. So if you need few last values or elements, you should use shared flow. It divided to shared flow and mutable shared flow. So it is same as live data, where we used mutable live data inside some view model, for example, and public live data. So we should do same with shared flow. There are two functions to emit value to this shared flow. First is suspend function called emit, and second is called try emit that can return true if operation is successful and false if not. Also, there is a subscription count. It contains number of active collectors. So also we could collect on it. The constructor of mutable shared flow contains 3 parameters. First, called replay. It is number of elements that will store inside this shared flow and replayed to subscriber. Second is extra buffer capacity. This is number of values buffered in addition to replay. And the last is on buffer overflow. This is an action on buffer overflow. Buffer overflow is an enum class that contains 3 strategies. I think this is obvious from this name what they do. So let's move to state flow. State flow is very similar to live data. It contains only one value, and it also inherits from shared flow interface. As always, we have state flow and mutable state flow. So in state flow, we have immutable value, and obviously immutable state flow value is mutable. In mutable state flow, we also have a function called compare and set. But in most cases, it used only in source code of state flow and help to solve some issues with multi-threading. Okay, so finally, with state flow, we support nullability, and we can use all power of Kotlin. But we should pass init value to constructor of mutable shared flow. Another interesting difference between state flow and live data is that we compare old state and new state. This code I took from source code of state flow. So as you can see, we compare a new state and old state, and if they are same, we just ignore new state. So keep in mind that this is really important difference. But during my preparation, I analyzed some source code of state flow, and I found really a few really funny things. First, do you remember that state flow implement shared flow interface? Take a look how replay cache looks like. This is really simple list that contain only one value. But the most interesting is that how try emit and emit looks like. Look, they do same thing. Try emit always return true and just set value that we pass to it. And suspend function emit cannot be suspended. So instead of these two functions, you could just set value manually and they will do same thing. Actually, state flow looks like a shared flow, but only with one element. But this is not true. Under the hood, they, in source code, they completely different and designed for different needs. I create a really simple example. In this code, we have state flow and shared flow, which in and we have some list from 0 to 10, and we emit these values. So if we use state flow, collector will display only default value -1 and the last actual state 10. But shared flow will display all numbers from 0 to 10. This is because state flow and shared flow are completely different. So if you're interested only in the most actual state, you should use state flow. But if you need all data, all flow of data, you should use shared flow. Phew, finally, we finish this overview. Let's migrate our application. So for this case, I create a really simple app. That's where you can enter your name and clicking update button, you will update this header. And clicking show snack bar, it will show snack bar with your name. Okay, so main fragment looks really simple. We just subscribe to live datas and do some our UI things. Okay, this is our main view model, and to update this mutable live data, I use data binding because in our application we also use it. So for me, it's very important that state flow supported. But the problem is that data binding with Stateflow supported only on Android Studio Arctic Fox. But when I try to build our application, I saw an exception, because I missed that I should also update Android Gradle plugin to version 7 Alpha 4 or higher. After that, everything worked fine. Okay, let's go back to our main view model. So in our view model, we have two live datas that provide action to fragment. So we can click two buttons and post username to these live datas. I do interaction between view and view model using data binding too. So the only thing that you need to do in main fragment is just replace observe to collect. But collect is suspend function. So you should launch coroutine first. We will launch it on lifecycle scope, and only then collect our flow. Okay. Main fragment is in main view model. We will use state flow because it's good choice for our case. So we should change mutable live data to mutable state flow, live data to state flow, and post value just with value. Okay, let's test our application. So let's enter some name, click update button, and as you can see, we update our header. Let's click show snack bar, and wait, what? Nothing happened. But why? Wait. The problem is in function collect. As you know, collect is suspend function, but when we call this collect function, it will suspend until coroutine will be cancelled. So in this case, second flow will never happen. So actually, this is not a big problem. We should just launch coroutine for each flow, and that's it. Or we could use a special action called launch in. So it will create new coroutine and collect just for you. And result code looks like this. And it's more like Eric Java style. But why do we use lifecycle scope? Do you remember that I mentioned previously that lifecycle of fragment and fragments view are different? So this is wrong to use lifecycle scope, right? For this case, in lifecycle, we have three different coroutine builders called launch when created, launch when started, and launch when resumed. In our case, launch when started will fine. So how does it work? So when we use launch when started, our coroutine will be active between state on started and on stop. In other states, it will be paused. But you may ask, how? Because as we know, in coroutines, a coroutine could be only active or cancelled. How it could be paused? The answer is pausing dispatcher. This is new dispatcher that created for this case. And under the hood, it uses real magic. So as you know, all magic tricks have some side effects. And in this case, pausing dispatcher pause only collector, but not emitter. So it could waste your resources because emitter will still emit values. So we should use something else. But it's not a problem. We could store our jobs, right? And just cancel them manually. But be honest, this is so many boilerplate code. So could we improve it? Of course, we could launch only one coroutine, and inside this parent coroutine, launch so many coroutines that we need. So we should store only one job, and when we cancel it, it also cancel all child coroutines. Looks like a good plan. Let's create some extension, move code to base classes, but for what? Luckily, we have library called Lifecycle Runtime KTX 2.4.0 Alpha first, where we have extension called Repeat on Lifecycle. So this is, as you can see, suspend function that will create a coroutine between state and its opposite. So if we will pass state, just for example, started, coroutine will be created between state after started and will cancelled after stop. After on destroy methods, our collect will be resumed. So we should use it, and as you can see, this is example how it looks like. Okay, let's migrate our code to it. Let's compare it with live data's code. Be honest, new code looks very massive and very ugly. Let's try to improve it. In our KTX library, we have another extension that's called Add Repeating Job. It looks very massive, but it do really simple thing. It just launch coroutine and then call Repeat on Lifecycle extension with our state. So the code looks like this. But still, I don't want to write so many code just to do simple thing. Let's try improve it using power of Kotlin. For this case, I create inline extension that will call this add repeating job, and on state started, we'll collect our flow. So in most cases, you should just collect flow in fragment, and that's it. I don't want to write a lot of boilerplate code, because more code you write, more chances that you do some mistakes. Also, I like extension or some base functions, because if in future this API will change, I need to fix only one place instead of whole application. This approach helped me a few times. So finally, our code looks like this. So let's compare it with let's compare it with code from live data, and it's look very similar, right? So as you can see, yeah, we just reinvent a well-known API, but one of the benefits is that we could pass this instead of view lifecycle owner. So this is because we launch our coroutine on event on started. So for fragments view and fragment, these two events are same, so it's fine. Oh, there is another way how to do it. You could use extension called flow with lifecycle. So the result code looks like this. So you just call this extension, then call on each to process all our elements, and not forget to call launch in to collect coroutine with our scope. But when I saw this code, I had flashback to times when I used Eric Java, and Eric Java is not bad. But be honest, I don't want to write a lot of boilerplate code just to collect some flow from view model. So be honest, I'm too lazy for it. Okay, let's test our code. I enter some name and then click show snack bar. And when I did my victory dance, I accidentally rotate screen and wait, what? The snack bar appears again? But why? This is not the end of migration. I promise, this is the last issue. So the problem is well known. For live data, we use a single live event that show only once. So for toast or snack bar, it works fine. But how to solve it with flow? Do you remember I talked about mutable shared flow, and in parameter we have replay. So replay is a number of elements that will store in shared flow. If we set replay as 0 or just set it by default value, we will collect our events only if coroutine is active. So for toast and some other UI events, it will work fine. But of course, this is not perfect solution. And finally, let's test our latest code. So we just replace mutable state flow with mutable shared flow and remove init value. So let's enter some name, then click show snack bar, rotate our screen, and everything worked fine. Let's do another victory. Oh, sorry. Let's do another victory dance. Okay, so let's sum up. As you can see, there are some pitfalls during migration. It's not just replace live data with state flow. Shared flow and state flow is not a silver bullet that solve all issues of live data. Yeah, they solve some of them, but also create new issues. So before making a decision about migrate your application or not, think about pros and cons. And if this migration will be valuable for you, just go ahead. But if not, just maybe think about some other more important stuff. In our case, maybe I will not recommend for our team to migrate to the state flow and shared flow because most of the libraries are still in alpha and better to wait to release. Also, for our application, maybe it will be not so valuable. So I think we migrate in future, but not now. Okay, thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Andre. That was amazing. So guys, if you have any questions, and girls and they and thems, if you have any questions for Andre, please drop it in the box, no, that way, in the box, and we'll show on the screen and ask him for you.
Whew, a little bit nervous.
You did great, Andre. It was so funny.
Thank you.
So Maya has a question. Would it make sense to only migrate live data in the repositories?
Yeah, actually, perfect question. And I think for our application or maybe for others, the most valuable migration will be in a repository because, for example, in live data or in view model or other layers, you can just collect this flow and that's it. So yeah, repository definitely will be the first place which we will refactor.
Cool. Any other questions? Ruben says this. I don't know what that means. What
This
does it
means
mean,
thank
Andre?
you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So Maxim asks, does they... Oh, I'm fighting with something. Is there any other option to transform hot to cold and vice versa?
Yeah, there are some operators that you can. I cannot remember the naming, but you can just call on the flow this operator, and it will store the latest value, for example. So if you already use flow but you want to do it hot, of course you could use these operators.
Cool. We have another question. Are the extension functions available to use in the provided libraries?
Actually, I talk about a few of extensions. Some of them are part of KTX library, but the last that I show is inline extension. It's my own extension that I write because, as I mentioned before, I don't want to write a lot of boilerplate code. So you can just create another extension, or with Kotlin and coroutines, you could use any approach as you want, because Kotlin is a freedom. You could use anything you want. It's just an example what you can use. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Thank you so much, Andre, for speaking at GDG Johannesburg. Finally, I convinced you, and finally, I hope that we've convinced a few other people also to join. So next up, thank you again, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Maya, too. Thank you, Pamela,
Thank
too. Thank you for your attention, guys. Bye.
Bye. Right, so next up we've got Fidelity, and he's going to be talking about constraint layer 2. Hi, Fidelity.
Hi, Pamela. Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen so I can start the presentation. Okay, here. And let me know when you can see it, please. Yes.
We can see it. Perfect.
Thank you. So, hi, everyone. My name is Fidelity Chauke. I'm an Android developer at DVT, and yeah, this is my maiden tech talk. So yeah, wish me luck. And I had to say like tech talk slowly, so it doesn't sound like TikTok. I haven't done any TikToks either, but yeah, it's a tech talk, and I'm talking about constraint layout 2, the helpers that came with constraint layout 2. Specifically, I'll focus a bit more on flow. So why talk about flow? You know, it's like constraint layout 2 is like 2020, and you know, all the attention is being given to things like Jetpack Compose, and rightly so. You know, Jetpack Compose and all these declarative UI toolkits are definitely the future. However, we don't live in the future, do we? Yeah, we live in the present, and fortunately, there are some improvements that are being made on the current UI toolkit. So Constraint Layout 2 actually introduced 3 things, 3 significant things. The flow, which I'll talk about a lot in this presentation. I'll also in passing mention a little bit about layer and motion layout. So yeah, very quickly, what was Constraint Layout 2 layer? It's actually a new helper. So if you remember from the original constraint layout, we had various helpers like guidelines and barriers. So with constraint layout 2, another helper was added called layer, which is actually a virtual layer where you can reference several views and apply the same transformation on those views at once. So like you can see the little animation I have there. You can, you know, translate your views and you can rotate them. And you do this without actually adding another layout inside your constraint layout, but the view hierarchy remains flat. Yeah, so you can also give it a try. There is the much talked about motion layout, which is also really, really cool. It allows us to build and preview animations and edit the animations using the motion editor. And yeah, it's something that is highly recommended to play around with as well when we get an opportunity. But in more detail, constraint layout flow, what is it? Most importantly, I would like to mention that it is what is called a virtual layout. So constraint layout 2 came with this concept of virtual layouts where you can mimic the behavior of having another layout inside the parent layout, but without actually creating another layout. That's why it's virtual. And specifically, it helps to position the widgets on the screen. So I'll talk about this a lot more in the demo, but it basically works like magic, where you've got a bunch of unconstrained views, you add them into the flow, and this virtual layout will help to lay them out on the screen. And it does this without adding extra layers on the view hierarchy. I'll keep mentioning this over and over again. So why should we use it? As I alluded to earlier, it helps to position your widgets without adding individual constraints. I've noticed in certain projects, a lot of developers going back to using linear layouts over constraint layout for certain use cases, because with linear layouts, you only add the linear layout and then you just add views into the linear layout, and they are arranged magically. You don't have to worry about fiddling with constraints from each little element and making sure that it's constrained relative to something else. I'm sure if we're watching PJ making his login screen, although that was iOS, we noticed it was just a lot of effort to use constraints to lay out many small little views. So what constraint layout flow does is you just add all of these views into the flow, and they are laid out automatically on the screen to form a list or to form a chain or even a table type of view. And another great thing about it is that you can also reference the views inside the constraint layout flow. You can still reference other views outside that flow to them. So for example, let's say you've got 6 elements in your flow, and there's something that you don't want to be part of the flow, but you want to position relatively to that element. It is still very possible because those elements aren't actually inside another layout. They're still members of the parent constraint layout. And I use it a lot because it's really, really versatile. I almost use it now on every layout that I make. So when can I use it? As I mentioned just before, the versatility is really great for me when you're making lists, and not like the type of recycler view lists, but the lists where you've got all the elements hard-coded and you just want to lay them out on your screen. You've got chains and you've got tables. And like the tables are really interesting because they behave like when you have an overflow of items in your chain, you can tell it to wrap onto the next line or onto the following lines, and also produce a table type of view or a table-like behavior. So yeah, how does it compare with the linear layout? So one thing I like about the linear layout, especially for those developers who still want to manually type their views in XML, the linear layout is still a bit more concise than using, sorry, I don't know why my animations are going by themselves. The linear layout is actually still more concise than the constraint layout flow because there's a little bit more setup that you have to do. I'll actually demo it very shortly. And also, besides that, it's also really useful. But if you're also looking at adding views in a sequential manner in an easy way, I think the linear layout and constraint layout measure up fairly equally. An advantage of the constraint layout over the linear layout is that it keeps a flat view hierarchy, and it's also really easy to edit so that you can try out different combinations, different spacings, and it's really easy to make tables and grids without using the gridded table view or grid layout. So yeah, I hope none of you have had to use those. They're really awful. And it's much better now to use the constraint layout flow. So I'm going to give a very short demo, and hopefully you'll be able to follow along. I don't anticipate having as many problems as as PJ did. But yeah, let's hope my IDE behaves. So naturally, there is some setup I did. Very simply, I just added a number of views, in this case buttons, and they're not constrained. That's why they're all in the top right corner. I can quickly show XML. So it's simply just constraint layout with 10 buttons in it. So let me open the design view. If we want to add the flow inside this constraint layout, there are a number of ways you can do it. You can right click and go to add helpers and select your flow, or there's this helpers section here, which has all of the layers I was talking about as well. But here is flow that we can add it in. So I'll drag and drop it in. I'm that guy who enjoys drag and drop. And you just simply constrain it to the parent. I'll just give 0 here, maybe 16 on the sides, and make the width to match the constraints. And now, very simply, I can select all of these views and drag and drop them into the flow. That's one way. Let me undo. Or I can actually add them in one by one in the specific order that I want to. But that's a bit tedious, so let me just go back and add all of them in. And come on. Yes, there we go. And you can actually see now that inside the flow, we've got these italicized references. These are reference IDs of the widgets or the views that are inside that flow. And as I mentioned earlier, you have a chain, but the chain is so long, it's overlapping on the sides. So let me just go to the flow. You find that you can play around with the orientation. Currently it's horizontal by default, but you can make it vertical to look like a linear layout. If we quickly go back to the horizontal, where it's overflowing from the sides, you can set a wrap mode where you can ask it to chain onto the next lines. It's already looking quite neat. Or you can have it aligned so that it behaves more like a table. So if it's chained, it behaves like individual chains where the items are spread out equally in your rows. And if you click on aligned, it behaves more like a table with a set number of rows and columns. Let me quickly go back to the vertical view so that we can actually put them in a better order. So ordering them, again, is very simple. It's drag and drop. I want us to make a calculator type of keypad. Come on, please behave. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, we can go to our XML and do that easily. So we want button to be at the first one, and then button 2, then button 3, I'm just keeping an eye on my time. I've got 5 minutes left, so I'll be done shortly. Button 4, button 5, button 6, 7, 8, 9. And if we go back to our design view, yes, there they are in order. And yeah, so imagine we want to make a keypad for a calculator type of thing. First of all, we'd want to make the flow horizontal and wrap. And then we can quickly say we want a maximum number of columns that we want before it wraps. So just simply adding 3 there and making the wrap mode a chain. We have almost, okay, these are in the wrong order. Very easy to fix. We want button 10 to come after button 9. So here we go. And back to our design, and voila, a calculator type of thing. If we want to play around with the orientation, we can have something that looks like this instead. It's really, really flexible. I don't think I'll be able to demo everything. There's things like how they're spread out within the view. So for example, you can make them come together closely, and you can also add a horizontal gap that you want to put in, for example, 5 dp. And yeah, it's really, really fast to iterate and develop and see what you're doing using the constraint layout flow, which is why I have fallen in love with it, and I use it for every project that I can. So yeah, that's more or less it. Any questions?
Hi, Fidelity. Not sure where Brucey is. Right. So, guys, if you have any questions for Fidelity, let's hear it. Oh, there was Brucey. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Fidelity, so much for that talk, man. It was really good.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Cool, cool. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions, guys? Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, yeah. So I don't see any questions. So, but thank you so much for the talk, Fidelity. We at GDG really appreciate your time and effort into that went into preparing it, and I'll definitely try it out. I'll definitely try it out. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us for another successful GDG. So to finish off here, we have a survey that's basically going to that basically lets you tell us how we did, the things we can improve, your favorite speakers of the evening, perhaps some things that you learned as well. Yeah, so feel free to give us your feedback, and yeah, thank you so much for a great evening, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, next month we'll be doing the whole She Can Do UI UX collab, if you guys are still interested in that. Lots to learn there as well. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Thank you.